So is Chip Kelly staying, leaving? Because he's gone fishing.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, review. And hey, this episode brought to you by FanDuel, because at Make Every Moment More by visiting FanDuel. New customers join today. You'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Big time. Check out FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Where we get started today is Chip Kelly. It's been swirling. I know it's been off a couple of days, but everything's changed. Whether is he going to be in line to become the Las Vegas Raiders offensive coordinator, Seattle Seahawks, Washington Commanders? Well, obviously one of those places got filled, and it's even debatable now whether he officially checked in on becoming the offensive coordinator for the Raiders before they hired Cliff Kingsbury, right? What is going to go on with this Chip Kelly situation for UCLA? Well, even if he's not going to leave this year, which I think at this point, if Chip's leaving in February to take an NFL job, that's pretty disastrous. As much as all the fans, as much as just about every Bruin outlet, including myself, I'm not going to speak for them, but I've definitely seen, we've all somewhat called or been frustrated with how Chip Kelly handled the 2023 football season. But it seems a little late in the game to go out if Chip leaves during recruiting right now to try and finish off 2024 and setting the stage for 25 with all his trips and all the players and all the coaches going out recruiting. He leaves right now, that would be brutal. That would be brutal. But that doesn't mean him leaving at the end of the next season isn't being set up right now. Let's take a look at the Chip Kelly contract, right? Certainly, nobody is a big fan. That's a big, wide statement. That isn't true. A lot of UCLA fans, I feel like I have a pulse, just aren't a big fan of Chip Kelly. Myself, I was as positive can be. I think he can generate the offense, but in terms of leading the team into the new day and age of NIL, super conferences, I'm not sure until the way college football has changed leadership-wise and how everything goes, is Chip Kelly the right man? Remember, there is a new deal that was extended for Chip Kelly, which changed the buyout numbers, increased his salary in a minor way, right, as compared to the rest of college football. But for UCLA, the reason they didn't fire Chip Kelly after 2023, one, they probably decided to try have a much cooler seat under Chip to make sure he can go into the Big Ten without having a new coach. And that buyout was $8.5 million approximately. But if UCLA goes through a horrible first year of Big Ten play, they only have to pay $4.27 million. That's less than half than what they would have had to pay initially just to buy out Chip's contract. And if they survive 2 more years with him, although that would be probably devastating for the program, they would pay nothing. So if we go through 2 more seasons and it's awful, UCLA has to pay nothing to keep Chip Kelly around. Now for Chip, now there's all the different reports, right? What's he doing? There's some connections, whether he was looking at some NFL jobs from CBS Sports, NFL Network, ESPN, all with variety of reports, looking at, hey, is he flirting with the Seahawks if they decide to go with somebody like Chip Kelly? The Raiders with Antonio Pierce, a rookie head coach coming in. And I saw different reports, whether it was Ian Rappaport reporting he interviewed twice for the vacant OC coordinating position in Vegas. Hey, he might be out for recruits, but Chip's probably out there also looking for jobs. And then ESPN lists the guys who interviewed for the Raiders open offensive coordinator position, and none of them involve Chip Kelly in that name, in the names listed. So it's kind of back and forth. But his name's coming up a lot, and he's clearly on the road with what the UCLA socials and Darren Usher, what they're all posting. The coaches are out. Chip is out of town, right? He is not sitting around. So he's probably using this, maybe unofficially, as a way to go set himself up for the future for UCLA. and set himself up for future years as a football coach, where it's like, hey, maybe it doesn't cut out for him as an NFL, as a head coach in college. For some reason, the change, everything, maybe that's not him. But he wants to jump back, extend his football coaching career, and get to an offensive coordinator position in 2025, right? Unless he goes and Dan Quinn, as a defensive head coach, wants to come bring Chip in over in Washington and make him that offensive coordinator to change things around. Chip right now, if he leaves, will have to pay UCLA $3 million. And hey, we know UCLA would love to have $3 million back, right? But if he waits to the end of the 24 season for Chip Kelly or the end of the 25 season in his current contract, that's $1.5 million only. So he can have his rate reduced by half. UCLA, the buyout rate is reduced. And for Chip Kelly, the same thing for him in his own buyout of sense to go to the NFL. So maybe he's doing some interviews, officially, unofficially, where it's like, hey, if I'm really a great fit, I'll jump. And then I'm just setting myself up to kind of get myself, hey, I'm looking at this again, but I'm not just going to do it now, right? Whether you're at your own job, you're at your own company, you're like, I'm in the idea of moving around. I'm not sure if I want this job. That would be ideal, but this is not the time. I'm going to go prepare with interviews and go through that process, put my name out in the circles. Because there's got to be reasons, even if like two different outlets are competing and they haven't said Chip Kelly's interviewed and one says he's interviewed twice, it is a common theme that his name's popping up again and again and again. Now, it would be brutal. I think brutal for UCLA to lose Chip Kelly right now. Because think about all the guys that are gone, right? All the fan favorite names, like the Jonathan Smiths, who's got a big contract at Oregon State. Jed Fish, who jumped over to Washington, taking over for Kalen DeBoer, who went to Alabama, right? Think about all those crazy moves. And even younger head coaches who are probably making jumps up. They're taking coordinator positions at the Alabamas, at all these different schools, right? What could happen? Could you throw in like a Ryan Grubb and have all these different candidates? But at this rate, at this time, at this juncture, the list is small, right? If you want to get crazy, maybe the Bruins could have hired in-house and gone to Ken Niumatalolo before you want to go to San Jose State and jump up his head coaching resume again after being a behind-the-scenes, a tight ends coach for 2 days, and then going to San Jose State. Of course, David Shaw has thrown out his name a couple of times to be a head coach. I'm not sure if that's the right move for UCLA at this moment. If Chip does leave, to go with David Shaw, if that was the list. But those are guys off the top of my mind. The list that was big and could have been interesting with what UCLA could pay right now without Big Ten money in their pockets at the moment is just not where you want it to be. Chip leaving, not good for UCLA at this point. This would probably be the worst part. You get a full recruiting cycle via the portal and trying to set up the 2025s, and all of a sudden he just leaves in the middle of that. That would be brutal. I'm not sure that's what he's doing, but he's certainly, based on the contract, flirting, hey, I got a backup plan and my next job, wherever it may be, lined up. Because in the NFL, think of all the coaches that changed. Think of all the offensive coordinators that changed. Think of all the legendary coaches that no longer have a job right now in different levels of football, whether it be being axed or retiring from the college to the NFL ranks. And you mix all those things together, there's always going to be open jobs. This is just Chip putting his feet out there and saying, hey, I'm ready. Let me showcase I can coach offense with this team that, if he doesn't get a lot of say in personnel, might do a lot better just coaching and playing with teams in the NFL, right? So he's setting himself up, I think, for the future. I'm not sure if he'll jump ship, although there's still some openings and that could happen. It is a realistic possibility. Although I've seen, just from reading, there's conflicting reports as to these four guys were interviewed. Chip was interviewed twice. Who to believe? I think Chip certainly put his feet out there, but he is out there recruiting, as are all the coaches on the recruiting trails, on the trails. You just hope he doesn't leave right now, because that would be devastating for this program. One more year, regardless of how it goes, could still, I think, set up UCLA better for success. Big Ten rights with the media money coming in, the buyouts lower. Chip, for him, that helps him with his buyout lower. I think all parties, even though it sucks in the first year of the Big Ten, it would be better if, since they've waited so long, that you just wait even longer to later in the season. And mind you, the Bruins can't let him go until December. It's a higher number if they get rid of him before the season or during the season. Let's remember that. So even if it's going bad in the middle of the season, UCLA, if they make a move, if 2024 is a disaster, they wouldn't make it until December, right when bowl season's happening, transfer portal opens. That's when everything occurs. Now, I do think there's still optimism for this team, and the schedule lines up for a better hope than what we're giving them. This UCLA team, I don't think, is a 3 or 4 win team. I think they'll surpass these low basement level expectations for this season. Now, are they going to go and get 10 wins? We have to see how the team shapes and how it all fits for Chip Kelly if he's still even the coach by the end of the NFL coaching circle search is over. All right? But I think, hey, he's setting himself up for the future, and we'll go from there. Speaking of future, UCLA's future for their season is now in men's basketball. They have turned their bleak outlook into current promise and some unique outlooks for the future in the next coming weeks. From February into March, it could get fun, heartbreaking, entertaining, ups and downs, frustrating. But right now we're enjoying the fruits of Mick Cronin's labors of this team that is turning into something pretty unique in a lot of growing ways. Next on Locked On UCLA. All right, big games coming up to all, and all who celebrate probably want to go check out FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because if you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday, it's all about scoring the best seat on the couch, get your best football snacks, whether it's some barbecue, whatever it may be, and placing some super bets. Yes, pun intended. Hey, because there's many different ways for you to end the season with a W, or 2, or 3, or place in a super big parlay, because you want to go check and bet who will win the Super Bowl 58, but also who will score a touchdown. You can bet on how many points will be scored, so much more. Hey, maybe you're going crazy and you're going to do a prop bet on the length of the national anthem, how long it takes Taylor Swift to fly from her Tokyo concert to the Super Bowl just to see Travis Kelce. But you got to go check it out, right? There's so many awesome bets you can bet on for this game, beyond just the winners and losers and points and touchdowns, that you're going to want to go check out FanDuel. Because right now you join today, $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Cruising on in Locked On UCLA, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer with you guys. And hey, the men's basketball program is getting it done right now. All right. They are closing in on getting back to 500 overall in this season, which has not happened since Oregon. All right. And we'll touch on that at the end of the pod. But first, UCLA, hey, the men got the job done against Oregon State. UCLA has now won 4 or 5. Mick Cronin's team is 10-11, 5-5 in conference play, 6-4 at home, and it's swept Oregon State. So the second time they play the Beavers, and mind you, this is a different Beavers team that the UCLA played at the end of December near the turn of the new year, right? This is a team who had beaten both Arizona schools, swept them in that 1-week series, and came to UCLA, came to Pauley Pavilion riding high. So that's a team that was confident, just like the Bruins were after absolutely thrashing USC in a sold-out Galen Center. Me there with the grandfather, enjoying it, watching the Bruins beat them down. That was without Berke. Both teams are down to start, and the Bruins still beat them. Well, luckily for UCLA, they got Berke back. He didn't make a super impact in this game, but it's always nice to see when you get your guys back, they play not just 2 minutes, but 15 to 16 minutes, get their feet wet for future games down the line. So what did the Bruins do to get this win? 71-63, right? Against an Oregon State team who's got an 11-10 record. The Bruins now 10-11. This was a big win to get because the Beavers, 4 separate double-digit scores. UCLA only 3, but they did more and spread out the love a little more evenly across the board. Because Mick Cronin, he found something in that USC game. The Adai minutes can be productive. Devin Williams minutes can be productive, right? Even if it's 3 minutes, Devin Williams still gets a rebound. Adai, who didn't take a shot, still hit a couple of free throws, got a couple of rebounds, got an assist, a block. That's more productive in his 8 minutes than what it had been in previous times. So getting productive minutes from those 2 freshmen who are big and could play roles, hopefully in future years for UCLA, definitely Devin Williams, and hopefully Adai if he stays another year. They're starting to learn how to use these guys, and they have grown enough to earn minutes on the floor for UCLA, who is stealing minutes from Kenny Nuba, the super senior. And then you bring in those two guys, the younger, maybe more athletic players. All of a sudden, those are guys just off the bench that are making growth. Not that they contributed entirely to this win like they did in the USC win, but those are things, minute things the Bruins are doing to get wins in between games. Now we take a look at what's happening. Why is UCLA winning these games consistently? And what happened in the Oregon State game? Well, Lazar Stefanovic does not come off the floor. And I said this in the summer when he was playing 30 minutes in Spain, when it came in the preseason, in the non-conference, all throughout conference, unless Stefanovic is having the worst game on the planet, which happened with every UCLA player in the Utah game. And then you wipe the floor clean. You wipe clean slate. And all of a sudden, Stefanovic comes here. He started to figure it out shooting the ball. When you go back and your entire former fan base is calling you a traitor for going to UCLA and screaming all sorts of things that I probably don't even know didn't come across the TV screen, that's probably got to be a low of a moment. Regardless of what he said public, that has got to be a low. And he has rebounded and played even better since then. He is important because he plays 32, and in this case, 40 minutes a game. When UCLA has him scoring 15 points per game, like he has close to been in the last 5 games where UCLA's won 4 of their 5, UCLA is probably not going to lose most of those games. They're going to win close to 80% of those games like they have been in recent times. Against Oregon State, 15. Against USC, 17. Against Arizona, another 17. 18 against Arizona. Against Washington, 15. What's the record in those games? 4-1. When had Stefanovic scored 15 or more before those games? Lazar hadn't scored 15 or more points since the Gonzaga game in Hawaii, when he hit a couple of threes and was red hot in that game and shot some free throws. He hadn't scored 15 or more since November of Thanksgiving in November, right? So you go all of December, most of January. You hit your low in the middle of January against Utah. And then since that Washington game, he is averaging, this is rough because I'm doing math in my head, close to 15 a game. And UCLA's 4-1 in those games. He scores 15 plus a game. UCLA is not going to lose most of those games. His scoring output has gone up nearly 2 points per game. And you think about all those close games, 6 points or less they're losing by. In all those games before the Arizona State game, like the Arizona game, those games turn when a couple of players increase their production defensively, rebounding, and for Stefanovic, what UCLA needs desperately is scoring consistency from the three-point line. And what has he done? Generally, in all these games, he has shot 40% or better from three, and his three-point shooting has crept up to 34%. Hits Washington 2 of 3, 3 against ASU, 3 against Arizona, 2 of 3 against USC, 3 of 8 against Oregon State. UCLA will live with that for a team that for a good portion was shooting under as a team, less than 30% from three. It's clear how much they struggle from shooting from the perimeter, from downtown as a team. Stefanovic, it has to be the leader. And maybe on a different team, you could have multiple shooters that could take the burden off of Stefanovic shooting threes and needing to shoot so much from across the arc. And now, in a moment I'll discuss, he's getting that from the likes of Dylan Andrews. Dylan Andrews has been instrumental in this little 2-game stretch he's played, leading UCLA to wins. Against USC, a 20-burger where he was just dicing it up and playing a little bit less minutes, but, 37 in this case. But he's playing a little bit less and doing more with less. 12 shots, 18 points, 50% shooting. 3 assists, 1 turnover. Maybe having him focus more on scoring. The confidence is there. We know he can hit that mid-range jumper, especially in the corner. And then when he makes in 2 for 3 from downtown, you see Andrews' efficiency, scoring outputs go up. Those 2 players alone, if they're going up by 4 to 5 points per game, and UCLA is playing a lot of games within 5 points or less, all of a sudden, those games are going to overtime or flipping in UCLA's favor. Beyond the extra production they're already getting, those 2 alone increasing what Mick Cronin's asking of them, doing everything between defensive assignments. That takes a lot of the burden from Adem Bona away from him because he was only on the floor 27 minutes. And normally when UCLA sees Bona play less than 30 minutes, they struggle. They do struggle. And against Oregon State, they struggled to defend the shots the Beavers took. They shot 51%, and UCLA still pulled away to win by 8 late. They didn't score a lot of points at Oregon State, but UCLA got enough scoring and got to 70 points, which normally they would have to scratch and claw just to get 60. And the Bruins got an easy 71. An easy 71. Get to the line 19 times, hitting 36% of their threes, shooting much worse than Oregon State did, but playing efficient basketball. One final takeaway from this Oregon State game, 8 turnovers. No turnovers, improved three-point shooting, increased production across the board, and UCLA gets the job done and is setting themselves up for a unique battle with Oregon, which I'm about to touch on in just a second, which could kind of bring a full circle to this conference season right now and get them sprinting towards the finish line to make them a unique contender in the conference tournament here on Locked On UCLA. All right, on this show you get a lot of in-depth analysis, hot takes, right? Chip Kelly, not just setting himself for leaving this year, maybe next year, but I'm going to give you my hottest take of the day. Right now, the best lineup in LA is the lineup of auto loans at Logix because they've got a great list, a great lineup. The proven and dependable new and used vehicle loans. You can count on these guys to give you low rates and save you big-time bucks. And they've got the new exciting rookie sensation, their electric vehicle loans, super low rates, and flexible payment terms. To round out the whole shebang, right, they've got their auto refinancing loans and lease buyout loans. With these guys, you could lower your monthly payments and get on the road to owning your car faster. Come on. I know it's a hot take, but seriously, no one can beat the lineup at Logix. Visit your local Logix branch right here in LA or in the surrounding areas and let one of their amazing team members help you, or just apply online at logixbanking.com. That's Logix, logixbanking.com. All right, we're going to finish and talk UCLA, Oregon a little bit. Maybe not specific keys, but this is what the matchup means for UCLA. And before I touch on the men's basketball team again, the women, they have some key games in the Bay Area. We're going to talk more in depth about the Stanford matchup in the next Locked On UCLA episode. The Bruins play Cal, and in terms of Lauren Betts news, I've looked. There's been no updates. There's been nothing definitive, substantial to report about Lauren Betts that has changed anything about her status, which was missing the last 2 UCLA games due to an undisclosed illness. What that is, the severity, I don't know. We just do not know on that situation with UCLA women heading on the road to their only games against these Bay Area schools in the regular season this year. In a crucial game atop the Pac-12 standings on Sunday. We'll touch on that in the next Locked On UCLA episode. But to finish, the Bruins, the men's team, just like the women's team, also have a chance to take down a first-place team this weekend in the Pac-12 standings. UCLA plays Oregon, who is tied with Arizona atop the standings, right? This is a good chance for UCLA. It's frustrating, right? If the Bruins had held on to beating Arizona, they would have won 5 in a row, be a game behind Oregon, win that game. They could be close to tied for the top of the Pac-12, and everybody would just be losing their mind and saying, what's going on? Which is already what's going on for this team as they play the Oregon Ducks, who the Bruins should have beaten in Eugene at Matthew Knight Arena, which is, some people say, the best court or the ugliest court in America. In person, I think it's kind of cool. On TV, it looks terrible. But luckily, they play at Pauley Pavilion. The Bruins, last time they played Oregon, on December 30th, a midday Saturday game, coming off a Thursday night game. The Bruins get a little bit more rest in this chance. They lost 64-59. The Bruins had some leads in that game, trailed by 2 at the half, and then Oregon pulled away late with some dagger shots, even though the Bruins did not face Oregon's top dog, N'Faly Dante. He was injured, missed a lot of the season. He is back now. The crucial matchup, Dante Adem Bona. Bona Dante. N'Faly Adem. Become acquainted with those two, and those Bruins should hopefully take down an Oregon team that just pretty much took down a USC team easily, right? They put up close to 80. USC didn't really stop anything. It was a Jackson Shellstad show as he put in 20 points as SC continues to struggle. So this is an Oregon team that's 10-1 at home. Their only loss came against Arizona, and they've done a large, good work away from home, even without Dante, or large portion of their work home, getting dubs. Not good enough to get love consistently in bracketology, funny enough, but enough now that with all their full pieces, there's a lot of teams that could be a dangerous squad to win the Pac-12 tournament, right? In 30 minutes, Dante against USC, 11 points, 5 boards. And I just know he's somebody that's going to try and put up big numbers against UCLA on the road with a Bona. This is a 6'11 senior from Mali who was a Pac-12 all-first team member last season, missed a bunch of games from November 6th to January 13th, played 0 games, limited minutes, has just started acclimating himself to the starting lineup. The last 3 games for Oregon, he has played 30 minutes and is putting in much more in terms of scoring. But UCLA has to look at what went wrong last time they played Oregon, which was this. UCLA was led with Bona, 6 of 7, played 35 minutes, but the Bruins turned it over 16 times. It was all the pressure Oregon did, traps, leading to terrible turnovers when late in the game, it was an ugly steal, right? Sebastian Mack, it was a point guard mistake there. So many turnovers. It was Bedeke with 3 turnovers in that game. Fuller from Mack in 24 minutes off the bench. The starting 5, and then you include Brandon Williams, who got a lot of runtime in that game. 5 turnovers. UCLA pretty much gave away that Oregon game. And Oregon only scored 12 points off those turnovers. What was a slower, slug-it-out defensive battle in Oregon. The Bruins practically gave it away. And Bona, 5 blocks, 15 points, did as much as he possibly could with 11 rebounds and couldn't get a lot of help. Bedeke was really good that game. He's not really up to snuff. He's rusty. And you can see when Bedeke is rusty, it's tough for him to be fully involved for UCLA offensively, whether it be in the starting lineup, rebounding, scoring. It's tough. So I'd like to see Bedeke, who probably won't be as full speed as he was in that Oregon game a few weeks ago. In December, I guess now it's February, now a month ago. We got to see Stefanovic get those 15 points. That's a bankable 15 points from Stefanovic. Bona needs to cancel out N'Faly Dante because he did not have to deal with that post presence. Oregon's lack of size was prevalent in the first matchup. They don't have that anymore. Now, they have been missing a Nate Biddle here and there, but Dante's presence somewhat changes the game in the paint and UCLA's success. So Cronin's going to have to throw the whole kitchen sink in there, whether it be Bona, Devin Williams, who's probably not strong enough, I think, to compete with Dante, which is key for Bona to get a lot of minutes. And I think, as much as we want to see it die, this is where Nuba could be a big, big presence in this game. Nuba only played 3 minutes in the first game. Simply banging bodies, keeping Bona out of foul trouble, so down the stretch you can play big-time defense. That is the key. UCLA's got to rebound, and make sure that Jackson Shellstad does not put up another 20-burger. He did that against UCLA the first time. You can't forget Jermaine Couisnard, who had a couple of clutch threes, because Oregon in that second half got red hot from downtown. They hit 6 threes. They didn't shoot that well to the Ducks, but they got hot for a key stretch in that game. Whenever UCLA was within a point or 2, it was a big 3, another big 3 for the Bruins, who just could not get over the hump. What is the meaning of this game? Well, now UCLA's starting to play teams for the second time. They beat Oregon State, and the Beavers were playing good. Oregon's back to closer to being at full strength. And let's see what the Bruins have changed. Even with guys in and out of the lineup, what can change for UCLA now that they're at home to get the win? This is a team atop the Pac-12 standings. You win that game, you're proven to the rest of the conference and maybe slowly to outsiders. And even to UCLA fans with a win, hey, every win, all of a sudden you get more believers again. 4 of 5, then can turn to 5 of 6. And I'm not sure UCLA should be favored in this game, but a win at home is certainly a reasonable outlook for this game. Absolutely. If the Bruins play how they've been, solid defensively, Bona staying on the floor, the other team is going to have a tough time getting close to 70, let alone 60 points in a good percentage. Whether it's 50 free throws that Arizona shot, it's going to be tough. to beat the Bruins. It takes foul trouble for UCLA to stay in it. UCLA, though, you win this game, you're going to be 500 for the first time since that Oregon game. You go back to December, a month ago, when UCLA was losing 4 or 5 in a row at the end of non-conference play, all those missed opportunities against the Ohio States, the Novas, the terrible week against CSUN and Maryland at home. And then you beat Oregon State, got back to 500, and UCLA lost. A heartbreaking one, just like all those other games against Oregon, who's now in first place, right? UCLA wins that game. They could have been running a little bit of a front runner, a fraudulent front runner, but a mini front runner with a little bit more confidence in those Bay Area games against Stanford and Cal at home. They then went on a losing streak, about 4 in a row, and the Bruins have crept back. A win, and they're finally back at 500 since that first Oregon game. I think they've hit the low, and they've bounced back. So do that. Stay out of foul trouble. Defend the 3, and most importantly, physical against the Oregon Ducks, and the Bruins can find a way to get a win at home. Because then all of a sudden they're 11-11, 6-5 in Pac-12 play. February's coming around. You get to March. As long as they're healthy, that week in Vegas will be very entertaining for UCLA's NCAA tournament hopes, which will come down to probably just a week of basketball. But I think they'll be confident enough, and especially matchup dependent on that run in Vegas for the last ever Pac-12 conference tournament. All right. And that all stems from building confidence, beating some of these teams like a first place Oregon team at home. All right. So get your hands up, get pumped. Both the men and the women have first place matchups coming up, right? Teams that they're playing that they want to beat big time, whether they're banged up or not. Get your hands up for a big 8 clap. Got to support these Bruins. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. I'm Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer saying so long. Go Bruins.